Hey, what is up guys? This is Nishi from MST.TV here, back with another Market Watch episode. So today we're going over some cards currently trending on the market because they are potentially going to be meta relevant. For the most part, these are cards that have confirmed support coming out soon. Some of that we know because it's in Rage of the Abyss or Crossover Breakers. Some of this is where the support is unconfirmed, and others is because there are certain cards being added to existing strategies to make them better in the current format. Now, even though a lot of us that buy and sell cards maybe don't play or compete at the highest level, it's definitely still important to note what is going on with the meta because it helps to make it a bit easier to identify trends in the market earlier on. Let's get started. Alright guys, kicking things off, we're taking a look at Mermail Abyss Guyos. So this card is a rank 7 Xyz monster that requires water monsters to make. Its effects are pretty simple. It stops level 5 or higher monsters from attacking, and you can detach a material as an ignition effect to negate the effects of all monsters your opponent currently controls that have less attack than this card for the rest of the turn. So as the set name would suggest, we have Mermail support coming in Rage of the Abyss, and we have the premiere event happening this upcoming weekend, with the set then releasing the following week right before YCS Niagara. While most players are going to be focused on the release of Mulcharmy, Fool-a-Loss, and Dominus Impulse, the Mermail cards are still worth noting because they are one of the most iconic archetypes from the game's entire history. Naturally, there's a ton of players that are going to want to pick up the deck once again, and while it may not be a top tier competitive strategy, it definitely got some much needed support, since I think the last time they got actual new support was Mermail Abyss Lacia back in 2019. Abyss Guyos is definitely a good option to have in Mermail since they are able to make rank 7 monsters quite easily, but unfortunately this card was only ever printed in Abyss Rising. That said, Ultras are between $30 and $40, while the Altis are anywhere from $60 to $80, depending on if you're getting the first edition or unlimited printing. Unfortunately with this one, we are going to have to just sit and really hope that this gets reprinted, either in the Quarter Century Bonanza set or it gets included in an OTS tournament pack. It depends on what happens. Naturally, we can expect the prices to tank if it does see a reprint, or to continue to climb if there's still no reprint in sight. Up next, let's take a look at the Bestial Lubellion. So I remember back when Darkwing Blast was pretty new, this card was actually one of the most expensive cards to come out of the set. This card is really cool. You can discard it to search for a Bestial, you can summon it from your hand or graveyard by tributing a level 6 or higher Dark Dragon monster, and it also lets you place Branded Regained to the field straight out of the deck. Now in the current format, Bestials are pretty popular. They're useful against Yubel and anything running the Fiendsmith engine, so we've actually seen a lot of players opting to run Magnamut, Druisworm, and occasionally even Baldrake in the main board. One thing that I've seen a few lists starting to do recently, however, is actually choosing to run the Bestial Lubellion as part of a bigger Bestial package. I think that the idea is that when you are going first, this card helps to ensure that at the very least, you have access to a Bestial for those important matchups, and then of course, Regained allowing you to potentially draw cards is always welcome as well. The other thing worth noting is that I could definitely see players wanting to use a bigger Bestial engine in something like Blue Eyes, which should theoretically be getting a structure deck sometime soon, since it would help to flood the field with big dragon bodies. Anyways, the Bestial Lubellion has two different printings. Right after the tins reprinted it, you could get either secret rare version for about $10 each, but now we see the originals back up to $20, while the prismatic secret rare reprints from the tins are about $15. Honestly, I don't think that this is horrible value, especially if you are planning on actually running them. We do have to worry about the card getting another reprint, but if it doesn't, given the card's limited availability, I could definitely see this card continuing to go up in price over time. Alright, here's one that might be pretty easy to overlook. It's Fire King Island. So we finally have Ulcanix coming to the TCG in Rage of the Abyss, and I'm definitely excited about it. That's the deck I'm going to be playing until Malice comes out. It's a really strong starter for the deck, and it makes the deck that much more powerful. Now the thing about Fire Kings is that basically the entire deck is available from the Fire King structure deck. You can get almost all of the engine pieces aside from Ulcanix, and then you just add your staples and extra deck cards and you're good to play. And since so many of the cards are new, there isn't really that much room to go out and bling out your deck. Fire King Island is one of the few things that you can go and upgrade. It just got a super rare printing in OTS 25, which was definitely welcome. This card lets you pop a monster to search for a Fire King, so this definitely is something that you want to see. Make sure that you remember that this card can be searched out through Sanctuary, and it does have the drawback of blowing up your board when it leaves the field. Now we want to note that if we're playing pure Fire Kings, we do want to play 2 to 3 copies of this card. That might be easy to forget since the Fire King Snake Eye deck just ran this card at 1. Now because of the announcement of Ulcanix, we've seen super rare Fire King Island moving up in price a little bit. It was literally under $1 each before, but it's now up to around $3 to $4 each. There was one other Fire King card in OTS 25 that hasn't really moved yet. That's Arvata, which I believe is played at 2. Definitely go home and check through your holo bulk if you've played at your OTS recently to see if you have any of these cards lying around. This one's pretty interesting to see already. We next have Chaos Angel. This card is a level 10 synchro monster that's really useful. It lets you use any dark or light monster instead of a tuner, so it's splashable for any deck running monsters of those attributes. And on top of that, it banishes any card on the field on summon, and then also can potentially get protections depending on what materials you make it with. Now in the current format, I don't think like Yubel or Snake Eye is really going to be making this card, but this is a solid extra deck option for decks like Chimera and Centurion. Chaos Angel has historically been one of the more expensive cards from the past couple of years. It only had a secret rare printing, and I think back when Labyrinth was running 2 to 3 copies of this card when they were dominating for that little bit there, I think this card hit a peak of like $70 or so. It hasn't been as good recently, and of course it did get reprints as an OTS Ultimate Rare, and then again it was in the 2024 tins. Now the prices for this card are actually kind of interesting. The Ultimate Rare is actually at a low point. It's currently sitting at around $35 to $40. For the original Secret Rares from Cyberstorm Access, they're sitting at around $25, but then with the tin reprints, they were down at $14 to $15, but as of the time I'm filming this, they're actually up to around $20 to $22 with very few quantities available on the market. With Chimera and Centurion both getting reprints in the tins that made them pretty budget friendly, and then even Labyrinth getting easier access thanks to Big Welcome and Arius being reprinted in the tins, it seems that Chaos Angel is a pretty in-demand card for a bunch of these tier 2 strategies. If you do need a copy or 2 for yourself to use in your deck, I think it's not a bad pickup if you want to grab them just to play with. I would definitely consider grabbing the Ultimate Rare since it is a little bit more money, but if the card does get reprinted, it's going to retain its value a little bit better than the secret rares. I definitely think this card could receive another reprint and QCR upgrade in the upcoming Quarter Century Bonanza set, so definitely be careful for that. Okay, so this one is probably something we should have seen coming. It's Gaga Cowboy. So as I'm sure you all know by now, the Ryzeal deck is a rank 4 spam strategy that'll be coming to the TCG in crossover breakers at the end of the year. Now over in the OCG, this is a deck that's been pretty dominant, with some places calling it a tier 0 strategy over there, and so naturally a lot of players here in the TCG are excited for it to be released. We've already seen several buyouts already, but one that we've seen a little bit more recently is with Gaga Cowboy. Cowboy has a really simple yet effective effect. While it's in defense mode, you detach a material from it to burn your opponent for 800 damage. So back in this card's prime, you would use this to end games if your opponent had less than 800 life points left, but nowadays with the new time rules, you can simply make this on your first turn to ensure that you're able to win the game in time. Because of its potential implications this upcoming format, we've seen all copies of Gaga Cowboy going up in price. The alties saw a huge price spike. They were down at around $50 to $55. They're now up to between 80 and 90 lowest on TCG Player, though there are just a few copies that have actually moved at around the $90 mark. The interesting thing is that all of its other printings are actually up as well. Not just the original Super from Abyss Rising, but also the gold rares, the rares from Wing Raiders, and then the Battle Pack Shatter Foils as well. All of them are anywhere from $3 to $6 each. Definitely something that is worth noting. If you do have this card lying around in your bulk, definitely consider offloading them while they are up there, just in case the card is included in crossover breakers itself. This one is just one to quickly touch on. It's Orcust Harp Horror. So in the OCG, they confirmed a new upcoming product called the Quarter Century Trinity Box, and in it there will be support for Dragon Maids, Orcust, and Punk. Really cool choices, but I think that Orcust are the ones that have gotten the most attention of all. They're a really popular archetype from back in TOS format, and a lot of players were really happy when Harp was unbanned, even though it has literally done nothing in the TCG since then. This card can be banished from the graveyard to special summon an Orcust monster from your deck, but then it locks you into dark monsters for the turn. I don't know exactly what that new support is going to be, but I'm sure that Harp will be used in the deck because whatever new monster they get, Harp should be able to summon it out of the deck. Harp Horror actually has a few different holo printings. The version that has moved up significantly is the QCR from Battles of Legend Terminal Revenge. This card was down as low as $25 to $30, but we've seen it shoot way up in price and now it sits at $70 each on TCG Player with less than 10 listings available. Unfortunately, because it was an Ultra in Terminal Revenge, both that and the supers from OTS 11 are under $1 each. Hopefully one of those versions is okay with you because the QCR is definitely way up there, and given how popular Orchist can get, I don't think it'll come down much until after the new support comes out here in the TCG. And finally, the last card I want to talk about for today is Ostinato. So Ostinato is the branded fusion for the Melodious theme, and it's actually been a pretty meta-relevant card. Not only is pure Melodious a solid tier 2 strategy, but for a while we actually saw people using a small Melodious engine to grant decks access to Appaloosa before committing their normal summon. Of course, Appaloosa is now banned, but I thought it was interesting because I actually saw a Melodious packaged used in a Ryziel deck over in the OCG. It was just a few of the monsters, but it did run 3 Ostinato, and I think the ideal was to make rank 4s with Refrain and Cannon, while also potentially getting free bodies with Baka, and maybe even a draw with Concerto. I did just see it the one time, but I think it was a list that took first place at a tournament, and hey, if we saw the Melodious engine used successfully here in the TCG before, it could definitely happen again. Now that said, Ostinato has fallen in price quite a bit from where it was when people were first discovering it. It still has just the 2 printings as commons from Soul Fusion and the 2019 tins. Either version is going to cost you around $2 to $3 right now. Moving forward, I really do hope that this card gets a holo upgrade, which would logically be in either the Quarter Century Bonanza or OTS Tournament Pack 26. If it does, then the common will remain cheap, but if those sets come out and Ostinato still doesn't have a holo upgrade yet, you might want to consider picking up a playset or 2 of the common versions of Ostinato, just in case the engine starts to see competitive usage again. Alright guys, that is all we have for this episode. Best of luck to all of you guys at your Rage of the Abyss sneak peeks this upcoming weekend. I hope all of you guys pull QCR Fuelos. I know that's probably not going to happen, but that's definitely what I'm going to be aiming for along with Impulse and Ulcanix. Anyways guys, if you did enjoy today's Market Watch, please make sure you let me know by hitting that thumbs up button. Make sure you leave a comment in the comment section down below. Hit subscribe if you haven't already, and until next time guys, don't forget to hold on to your MST.TV.